Hello there, I'm Corel Painter Master Aaron Rutten, and in this video I'm going to demonstrate one of the new brushes I created. This is called Impressionist Leaves, and as you can see it creates these nice Impressionist style leaves. If I make my brush bigger, I get bigger leaves, and I can control the size of the leaves with my pen pressure. I can change the color of the leaves here by choosing an additional color. I can keep making that color brighter and add highlights like so, brighter yet again, and so on. Now the image hose nozzle is what comes out of your brush, but to control how that image comes out of the brush, you need to choose an image hose brush. So right now I'm on linear size P angle D color, which allows me to paint with color, and the leaves follow the direction of my stroke. I can also change the size with pressure. If I choose just regular linear size P color, it won't follow the angle of my stroke. So you'll get a little more variation if you use the linear size P angle D color. You can also use the spray size P angle W color, which kind of sprays them out randomly if you want a little bit more randomness to your leaves. So let's go ahead and go through a quick tutorial of how to paint these leaves with this brush. Before we get started, I just want to thank the wonderful folks who support my channel over on patreon.com/AaronRutten. This brush and all the new brushes that I create for Corel Painter each month are made possible by donations from patrons like you. Thank you very much for supporting my channel. So you'll notice I have a few layers here. I've got my tree trunk, which is in a group, and then I've got a blank layer for leaves foreground and leaves background. I'm going to start with the leaves background. These will be the leaves that are behind the tree trunk. Because remember, the tree is three-dimensional. There's going to be leaves on the far side of the branches, in the middle of the branches, and in between all the branches. So what I'm trying to paint here is the inside of the leaves. If you thought of the leaves as a three-dimensional object, if you went inside of it like a bird would and you looked from the inside out, the inside would be pretty dark because the leaves are blocking the light. So with my additional color selected here, I'm going to select a cooler, darker green, and I'm going to paint in a test stroke here. The brush that I want to use for this part is going to be linear size P angle D. I think that looks good for the size of my leaves. Now I drew in my trunk first because that'll help me decide where to place these leaves. If you do it the other way around, sometimes it's harder to see where to place your trunk and your branches. So we want to place the leaves in clumps on the end of the branches. So I'm just using swirling patterns to make little clumps of leaves, but you do want to make little individual clumps. You don't want to do just one big mass of leaves. I'm going to cover just the ends, and I can leave a little bit of branches showing. You want to put some kind of in the middle here as if there's branches that are pointing out away from the tree that you can't see. That looks pretty good. If you wanted to lighten or darken those leaves, you can always go to Effects, Tonal Control, Adjust Colors, and you can play with the value to darken it. You can lighten it, and you can change the hue if you want it to be a different color of leaf, but I think it looks okay the way it is. Now I'm going to go to the leaves foreground layer, and I'm going to pick a color that's shifted more towards yellow in hue and is much brighter. I'm going to make sure to keep my brush the same size because I don't want my leaves to change size. But what I'm going to do here is just try to use less and less light color each time I lighten my color. So I'm going to do just a few leaves, again following those clumps and staying more or less on the top side of the leaves. And trying not to cover up everything, I'm going to put in some leaves. Now I'm painting in the direction that I want the leaves to flow, so I'm going to have some leaves kind of fanning out here. You can see if I do the stroke slowly, they're emanating from a central point. Because leaves in nature do kind of flow that way. They kind of hang off the branches and gravity pulls them down. This gives you a really nice painterly leaf effect without the leaves being too detailed. Let's create a new layer. I'm going to call this Leaves HL. HL is short for highlight. I'm going to make my color brighter and shift it more towards yellow. And I'll just put in a few little taps here. Very quick, short taps, just to put in even less of this light color. I mentioned just a minute ago that I want you to use less and less each time you lighten your color. It's because there'll be fewer highlights than shadows typically on the tree. And this is how you help your trees not look flat. I'm going to brighten that color again, shift it more towards yellow. The highlights on trees are typically pretty yellow, and the shadows are typically pretty cool. But there's no hard and fast rules there. It can change from tree to tree. But just a few little highlights here and there. Now if you want to continue adding layers of leaves, you could do that. For example, I could add one in the middle. We'll just call this new layer Leaves Mid. I'll sample that green color that I was using for the shadow and just make the color a little bit brighter and a little bit more towards yellow. And I can put in a few of those here and there just to kind of cover up more of the branches. The more layers you do, the better, because trees have a lot of layers of leaves. I'm going to create a new layer for dead leaves, because trees will often have dead leaves on them, and you can pick warmer colors for that. So here and there in a couple of places, I'll tap in a few little brown spots. I'm going to go back to the leaves highlight layer, and let's put in some really, really intense highlights here. I'm just going to do that on a couple of leaves, just to make those pop out. And maybe I'll go to the leaves background layer, sample that dark color I was using, make it a little bit darker and a little bit more blue. And here and there, I'll put in a few darker leaves kind of down towards the base. Again, all these layers really help to make your piece look less flat. Might even go just a little bit darker, a little bit more towards blue. And just in those heavy shadow areas, just really darken those where the leaves are really clumped together. Now, if you end up covering up too much of your trunk and your branches here, I'll show you a little trick for fixing that. I'm going to go ahead and just merge all of these layers of leaves that are above my trunk. I'm going to select them all with Shift, and then I'm going to hit Control-E on my keyboard to merge those layers. You could also get to that down here in the Layers palette under Collapse Layers. We can just call that layer Leaves Foreground. I'm going to go to the tree trunk layer or group, and you want to choose either Select Layer Content or Select Group Content. Since this is a group, I'm going to choose Select Group Content. That'll put a selection around those trunk layers. I'll go back to the Leaves Foreground layer. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-H to hide my selection while still keeping it active. You can also get to that here. I'm going to select my airbrush, and then I'm going to select black for my main color, so I'll need to switch over to the main color. Then I want to add a mask to that layer. And now if I paint with black within that mask, I'm going to conceal those pixels or that area of the layer that I'm painting on. So that makes it really easy to go in here and just paint away some of that stuff from earlier that I covered up. That's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and right click on that layer mask and apply it. And I think that gives you a pretty good idea of how this brush works. I'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see this a bit closer. You get these really nice brush stroke details, and it looks like you spent a lot of time going in here with a brush and painting in all these little strokes. They don't look too realistic, and that's kind of the problem with leaves sometimes. If you paint them too realistically, they don't look right at a distance. Again, this brush was made possible by the superfans who support my channel over on patreon.com/AaronRutten. You can go there and download this brush right now, along with a bunch of other brushes that I created for Corel Painter. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, take a quick second to like this video. And if you're new to my channel, I'd love to have you subscribe. You can get access to hundreds of digital painting tutorials like this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.